What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the newly titled Wolf's Ramblings, which is where I ramble for a very long amount of time on some specific subject related to gaming. And since this is the second one, I feel like I want to get all the Zelda out, which is probably going to be the title in some sort of the video. But I love Zelda, and instead of doing a bunch of different videos on topics that would only last like 10 or 15 minutes, I think I'm just going to go through anything that relates to Zelda. I'm just going to talk about Zelda for the next like half hour. So, if you like Zelda, this would be good. If you don't, well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to get the Zelda out. So, Zelda, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time was my first video game ever. Or, really, I should rephrase that as my first video game experience that I remember. And came out, I got to do the math here to figure it out, but it came out in 1998, right? I believe it came out. It might be 1996, actually. Okay, if it's, I don't know. I don't remember the exact. It was either 96 or 98 that it came out, and it was the first game I remember playing. And wow, what a game to be the first, really. It's just it's really a great game in pretty much every sense. Like this, it was just a game for its time. I mean, the graphics. It was one of the first 3D games. I mean, hey, there might have been a bunch of 3D games before, but it was in that first chunk of 3D games that came out, at least on the Nintendo 64. And I think, the couple of things that really stuck with me about the game was, well, for one, the water temple, and not for the reason you may think, and the ending of the final boss fight of the game. First, I guess I should talk about the water temple. The water temple has a notorious theme around it, that it is really hard and frustrating, and it's bad, or it's any negative connotation you can put on it is what people think. But I actually, for what it's worth, I like the water temple. I didn't think it was. The only reason it's hard is really one thing, and then you can probably go back in your first experience and be like, actually, that really made the whole one key that is underneath the center of the map where you change the water level, I believe, all the way back up to the top. No, that's the third one. That's the third floor one. I think it goes halfway. I can't remember specifics, but it's in the middle center column, if you will, and you rise the water up, and a platform comes up about halfway, and it really doesn't make it that obvious, but you can go underneath that platform because it was blocking off a passage, and there's a key down there that you need, and that one key will fucking just, it's really hard to know that, and it lets you get stuck. It makes you get stuck, and that's generally where the frustration of the water temple comes in. And of course, I'm not counting the very poorly designed menu system for the iron boots. That's the main reason that you could call it a bad dungeon, but it's not the dungeon that's at fault, it's the menu system. So I'm just going to go just the dungeon itself, and it's a really good, well-designed temple, besides that one fucking key. But I really liked that temple. I was frustrated as shit, but I really liked it. And okay, and then the final boss fight of Ocarina of Time is amazing. It's not that hard, especially the first part. I'm more thinking about the second phase. Spoilers abound as well for all these games. Again, I caught myself rather early, but probably spoilers. But the second phase where you fight Ganon, it's really epic. It's not hard, but it's epic, and it really stuck with me. And that's like the part I look forward to the most, which is, I guess, the end of the game, but still. That and Ganon's Tower, or Ganondorf's Tower, whatever. Really cool mini kind of dungeon, like half-seas dungeon. I'm more talking about the aesthetics of it. The design's kind of cool too, but it really looked nice. It was a really very nice final dungeon temple, if you will. But yeah, Ocarina of Time, if you haven't played it, if you have not played it once, you need to play. It's just like, I'm trying to find a good explanation or a good analogy. It'd be like, if you're going into movies or you really enjoy movies, you should watch some old, like Shawshank Redemption, I guess. I don't really know much about movies, but that's the movie I hear is one of the best. So it's kind of along those lines that you just kind of have to play it to get why it's so loved and adored. And I really don't I really don't get why Ego Raptor, who I've mentioned in the last episode, doesn't like it. He doesn't like Ocarina of Time. I don't know why, he's gonna explain why in his next sequelitis video, and I'm really looking forward to that because I'm gonna wholeheartedly wait to disagree with him. But who knows? Maybe I'll be convinced that he's right. I doubt it, because I think Ocarina of Time is probably the best game ever made, at least up to this point. You never know. But yeah. It's not my favorite Zelda game, though. We'll get to that. I've mentioned it before, but we'll get to that later on. Then we jump to Majora's Mask, which Majora's Mask is just a fucking anomaly. Not a bad one, but it's the game that Nintendo spent the least time to make. They only like a year and like 10 months, I think, around that time. A little less than 2 years it took them to make the game. It used the same engine, so I guess that saved a bunch of time. But it's probably the game with the best story, for sure. It's so... this word is overused, but it really fits. It's so dark. It's really dark, and it's not really... it's a kid's game. It's rated E, but it's not really... There's so many things in there that creep me the fuck out when I played it as a kid. And... I don't know. I guess rating systems are different these days, but that game is dark, it's creepy, and it's, as I mentioned before, it's depressing. But it's a good kind of depressing, if that makes sense. The themes in it, it's this end of the world environment that a lot of movies try to capture. Like one of the more recent ones, Seeking a Friend for the End of the World. I never saw that movie, but apocalyptic type scenario. But it does it so... Majora's Mask does it so well that you kind of feel that depression when you're playing the game. That, you just see all the people around you who just give up. Like, they're either running away or they're just giving up. And it's really sad. Like, I'm brain farting, but the main side quest... The fucking... the names are leaving me. I don't know why I can't remember, but the man who gets turned into a boy and the innkeeper. Anju and Cafe. Thank you. I couldn't think of it, but it's Anju and Cafe. That side quest, the ending is fucking so emotional for a game. Like, they're sitting there with literally minutes left to live, and they love it, and they want to spend their last minutes together. And die together. Wow. Remember, this is a kid's game. And that's pretty deep for a kid's game. And that's just one of the side quests. There's so many little things. There's so many little things in the game that are really deep and well-made story elements. And again, it blows me away that a game like Skyward Sword can have a 5-year development and have a very lackluster story and lackluster game design, and a game like Majora's Mask can have less than 2 years to be made, and it's just a fucking masterpiece. I don't get it. And even a good theme, the 3-day, it's so perfect because you literally have to live through this depressing apocalyptic scenario over and over as you play the game. So, it doesn't actually wear on you, but you can imagine it wearing on Link himself, because he's just a kid, and he has to keep going through the end of the world over and over again, and see all these depressing stories happen. It's wow. It's wow. One of the main things that stuck out for me in terms of gameplay, though, was the Stone Tower Temple. Until recently, it's a close tie between it and the Ancient Cistern from Skyward Sword, which I mentioned in the last video, for best dungeon out of any Zelda game. Stone Tower Temple is fucking insane and just awesome. When you flip that fucking... you go through the whole dungeon, and then you come outside and you flip it upside down, and... Honestly, I didn't expect that. You can see, sometimes there's, you press a switch and a treasure chest appears upside down. But I don't think you really like. At least I didn't really put two and two together and be like, "Am I gonna have to flip the?" I never thought that. I was just like, maybe that comes down somehow. I mean, I don't know. And then you learn that you got to shoot the arrow outside and shit happens and you go and you do that and the fucking whole world flips and Link somehow falls to his death but doesn't fall to his death into the sky, and especially when the moon's like right there too, it's really creepy. And then he appears and then you're there and the temple's fucking upside down. You go in, the entire temple is opened up to go through upside down, and you're like, fucking whoa. And the music fits it so well. Like, it has a theme for when it's right side up, and the theme's kind of like, creepy because it's like a ghost. The whole area before, it's like a ghost environment. It's not really a good explanation, but you go through it, and you flip it upside down, and then the music changes, and the music is so weird. It's so good. It's one of my favorite themes from the game, but it's so weird, and it fits the whole... Like, if you were to describe a song, or try to make a song that describes the feeling of upside down, if that makes any sense, this song does it. You can look it up. It's on YouTube. It's like a Stone Tower Temple theme upside down. Crazy good. Crazy good. And the ending to Majora's Mask is so... like weird too. Like it's well thought out. At the end of the game, you jump into the beam and go up into the moon. And what are you expecting when you jump into the moon? You're expecting like rock or some evil looking place, dark. I mean, the whole game's been dark up to that point, so creepy and depressing and dark. And you jump up into the moon, and they fucking throw this massive curveball at you. It's a beautiful field with a beautiful tree and kids, creepy kids, mind you, but kids running around playing in this beautiful environment, and you're like, what the fuck is going on? And then you see Majora, the kid with the Majora mask, just sitting there on his own next to the tree, and you're like, fuck, this is gonna be good. And you talk to him, and then he transports you to what you probably expected from the moon, which is the really weird Technicolor place where you fight Majora, and the game ends. Really weird game, but weird in the right ways, in every right way. Oh man, I mean, there's so much death in the game too. Like again, it's a kid's game, and you go by and there's the first thing you pass in the game is a fucking dead Deku scrub that you later learn to be the butler's son at the end of the game, which he actually doesn't know is dead until the end, I think, which is depressing. You meet a Goron's ghost who just recently died in battle, and you heal his soul, his dead soul. He's dead, and then you literally witness the death of Azora. Literally, it happens in the game, and Link fucking buries him and makes a gravestone. What the fuck? How do you do that? But it's so good. It's so... I'm not even... This isn't like a complaint. It's more like a... Wow. It's so good. So good. And I'm kind of blown away. There's the scene... And the game really finds a way to be heartwarming at points, too. Like in the next... in the Icona Valley, where you find the warped father who's like warped with a Gibdo. And you had to heal his soul. And the little girl, has been like... keeping him locked away. This little like 5-6-year-old girl keeping her monster dad locked away in a house, and when you heal him, she runs and they have like a really heartwarming moment, and it's like, oh, that's nice. I don't know why they're living in this zombie mummy filled area with ghosts and dead things, but that's really nice. And even if you sort of like walk up and talk to them while they're having their moment, Tattle's like, really can't just let them be together, fuck off. Something like that. But yeah, great game. If you, again, same story with Ocarina of Time. If you have not played this game, even though I just spoiled everything, you should go play it, because it's all about the experience, and the experience is really, really good. So that's Majora's Mask. I guess we move on to Wind Waker at this point, if I'm going chronologically. Wind Waker, I don't want to say it's my least favorite, because it comes with a, again, negative connotation that's not actually there. But I didn't enjoy Wind Waker as much as I enjoyed the others. I think the cartoony graphics and the whole happy, it didn't work for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not calling it bad in any way. It's another great fucking Zelda game. Nothing wrong with it really, but just personally for me, it didn't sit well. and I still loved it like a Zelda game. I mean, again, I know I'm literally like flip flopping on you here. I didn't like it, but I liked it. It's a great game, and you should play it. But it felt incomplete. There was only what, one, two, four dungeons, not counting any end dungeons or mini dungeons. But I think there's only four main dungeons. There's the Deku, or the next to the Deku tree. There's the volcano, and those are and then the third one where there should be a third dungeon, there isn't, because the island gets destroyed. And then there's the last two dungeons. Yeah, there's only four. Wow. Again, that's not counting Forsaken Fortress and the very end dungeon, which is a mini dungeon. But there are quite a few like mini dungeons, so I guess that kind of makes up for it. But the dungeons and the temples are the main thing that I love and that everyone loves about Zelda. So when you take those out, same problem with Skyward Sword when they weren't very good. It's like you lose a lot of the value. And in Majora's Mask, there's only four dungeons. But I didn't complain about that, and the reason I didn't complain about that was because the side quests in Majora's Mask are fulfilling and worth it. Like, I'm not one to 100% a game. I've said before, I usually don't 100% a game because I feel like it's a chore, and a lot of the times you got to go way out of your way, and even sometimes look up guides and things like that, and that ruins the experience. I like to play a game, get immersed in the game, play the game. And Majora's Mask, I 100%ed it on the first try. Because everything that in that game is fulfilling and worth it. All the side quests. In Wind Waker, all the side stuff feels so empty and pointless. Like, your reward for all this is either rupees or hearts or just pointless things, and it doesn't feel worth it, so you don't do it, and the game ends up being short in a fulfilling sense, because the game is about the same length as other games, but that's because most of the time you're sailing around from place to place. There's a really bad fetch quest in the middle of it where you got to get the Triforce pieces. You visit the same dungeon twice, or I say dungeon, but it's more of a mini dungeon. Forsaken Fortress, you visit that twice, and the game feels stretched. Like you have Majora's Mask, which is really fulfilling, and they just stretched it out, so it's longer, but there's less stuff there. If that makes any sense. I'm terrible at describing things. But yeah, it feels like an unfinished game. Similar to Skyward Sword, but in a different way. It just doesn't feel right. And again, it's a great game. It's really fun. It takes Majora's Mask and makes it completely opposite in terms of theme. It's a very happy game. There's not a lot of sadness there. Like, one of the fucking happiest moments. Like, you are going to be really happy when you play that game, because it's hard not to. It's very goofy and funny and enjoyable. And there's one part in the game that's sad but gets really happy, is when you leave, when your sister gets kidnapped and you leave, and if you come back later on in the game, your grandmother is like sick. Like, she's not sick, but she's just so worried that you can't really, if you talk to her, she just kind of groans and is like, all worried and shit. And if you give her a fairy, she gets healed and she's so happy to see you. She feels better and she gives you soup, and it's like, oh, fucking grandmother's homemade soup. She's happy. Everything's it's so happy. And the whole game is filled with moments like that. When you rescue your sister, it's all happy. When you do all these things, it's all happy. It's just a happy game. I said happy like 20 times, but there's a reason for that. It's happy. And another interesting thing about the game that I think is cool is that you see Link kind of has a life. Like, in all the Zelda games, in Ocarina of Time, no family. In Majora's Mask, I mean, it's the same story, Link, but no family. Twilight Princess, no family. Skyward Sword, no family. Link to the Past, he had an uncle, but he dies very early on, so I'm just going to say no family for that one. And Wind Waker is really the only one where he has a family, a grandmother and a sister, which really gives you the impression that he has parents, or had parents. Clearly his parents died. I don't know if that's ever explained in the game, I can't recall, but it gives you this sense of family. That's usually not there, and that's really nice. I feel like Link needs to be more fleshed out as a character sometimes, because in a lot of the games, he just seems like a dude, kind of just in a town. Like, he doesn't feel in place. I think that's part of it, though, is that he's not supposed to be, not supposed to seem like he fits. because it's really brought to home in Ocarina of Time when he is in the Kokiri forest with the little Kokiri, and he's not actually a Kokiri, and he has no fairy. Uh, he feels out of place, and it's meant to be that way. And I guess it's meant to be that way to make him seem different, which is supposed to set up the story of the game and all the games. So I guess that's the reason. But I like in Wind Waker, it kind of worked, and that was the first time they actually gave him like a family. Again, not counting the uncle and Link to the Past, but it felt really nice. I think they should do that more often. Yeah. So Wind Waker, again, not my personal favorite, but not a bad game. It just feels a little empty, just a little bit. But anyway, I guess we move on to Twilight Princess. And as I mentioned before, I love Twilight Princess. Twilight Princess is my favorite Zelda game for many reasons. But I guess not no buts. I'll start explaining. First, one of the negative things about Twilight Princess, or at least some people consider it to be negative, is that it's too much like Ocarina of Time. But I don't have a problem with that, because I felt like since Ocarina of Time, Majora's Mask, I guess only Wind Waker's in the middle here, but it was a long period of time between Majora's Mask and Twilight Princess, and Wind Waker didn't really feel as Zelda-y as other Zelda games, and I felt like I didn't actually get a true 100% Zelda game. And so when Twilight Princess got back to the roots of Zelda, it felt awesome. It was basically everything about Ocarina of Time, but better, or at least in my opinion. And it's a great game. It's really good. It's really safe. I'll say that. It's definitely a safe game in that it doesn't take too many risks. But I don't think it needs to. I don't think being Zelda, or at least back then, it didn't. It needs to take risks now, because Skyward Sword, I already explained all that in the last one, but it needs to take risks now. But when Wind Waker kind of didn't sit well with some people, they didn't want to take any more risks. Changing the art style for Wind Waker was a risk, which actually the art style paid off in the end, but a lot of people didn't like it for some reason. But they went back for Twilight Princess, and it worked. The only problem with Twilight Princess, which actually isn't a problem for me, but is the motion control wasn't that great. But I didn't play it on the Wii. I played it on the GameCube because I didn't own a Wii at the time, so I didn't have that problem, and the game was awesome on the GameCube. That's why if you're gonna play Twilight Princess, play the GameCube version, because the Wii version is motion control, blah blah blah. Motion control's dumb. I should make a video explaining how dumb motion control is, but that's another story for another time. Back to Twilight Princess. Everything about Ocarina of Time, but better, which is why it sat so well with me. It takes a little bit to get started. There's a tutorial, and this is like the very first baby step towards making the game towards a wider audience for Twilight Princess. Was the very long and obnoxious tutorial at the beginning. But that's just one part of it that I don't really. I'm willing to deal with that as long as the rest of the game is good, and the rest of the game is great. It's kind of light on the side quests, but the side quests that are there feel pretty fulfilling. There's the bug collecting quest. There's the what's the other one? The Poe collecting quest. It's kind of a shitty end reward, but. Again, I never really 100% games, so it wasn't a big deal that wasn't that great. But the main story I thought was really good. And here's where I want to get to my main argument about Twilight Princess, which I mentioned in the last part, was that people say that Twilight Princess is trying too hard to be dark. It's trying too much to be like Majora's Mask, and I disagree completely. I think you're not looking far enough into it if you say that it's not. That's not dark enough. I don't think it was really trying to be the same kind of dark that was Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask is off the fucking dark charts. It's crazy how dark that game is. And Twilight Princess, again, I think I talked about this a little bit, but I want to expand on it. It's trying to be different, strange. It's trying to be strange in a dark kind of sense, if that makes any sense. But it's trying to be strange. Like, there's this whole other world, the Twilight Realm, that you visit only a couple times, or I think only once, actually. And it's really strange, and it's this whole thing you don't understand. And when you see the Twilight Realm kind of take over the Light Realm, which is the normal world, it feels unsettling. It just doesn't feel right. but it doesn't feel right in terms of story in a good way. It's not supposed to feel right. It's supposed to feel not right um, when you're going around in it, because the Twilight Realm isn't supposed to be a part of the light world, and it really, again, I mean, you see all the like the spirits, all the people who get turned into spirits because they're not supposed to be in the Twilight Realm, and it doesn't fit again. The game actually does seem a little dark. Like there's a couple moments in the game. One moment where, I mean, this is really throughout the whole game is this a sense of fear in the Twilight Realm. Like when you find the kids again for the first time in Kakariko Village, they're huddled and they're just terrified, and they're huddled with these two people who saved them. Three people who saved them. No, two. It's two? It's two. Okay, we'll go with that. Two adults who saved them, and they're just even the adults are terrified. I mean, it's just like the whole, they don't know what's going on, and then they this is the part that gets me, is that they talk about this lady who owned the shop, and how two of the shadow beasts went in, and then three came out, and then the lady was never to be seen again, or something like that. And it's like, so basically what they're saying is they, murdered or changed or fucked with the lady, and so they're worried that that's going to happen to them too. And then they're just children, and so I thought that was a pretty dark moment in the game, or at least a moment filled with sorrow and fear or what have you. There's a moment where you got to lead this son to his mother's grave because his mother was murdered. That's kind of dark, if you ask me. And the son almost dies too. He gets like this sickness and nearly dies, and you gotta save him as well. There's the fucking Yetis. The Yetis are like one of the happy points in the game when you go to it's a really creepy mansion. It's one of the cool dungeons. It's probably in the top 10 list of Zelda dungeons. But the mansion, the Yeti mansion, is really happy until the very, very end when you fight the boss. If you've played the game, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But that shit scared the shit out of me. But the Yeti girl, the wife of the Yeti guy, and when I say Yeti, they're really quite happy-going people. They're not really terrifying, scary, until the Yeti wife. I think her name's Yetta. I think Yetta and Yetta is their name. But Yetta finds the mirror and kind of stares at the mirror, and then gets turned into this crazy, scary Yeti. Not really Yeti beast, but just the eyes and the teeth and the not take mirror. Again, you have to know what I'm talking about to get it, but it's not. It's a scary moment. The only part where the game tries, I think, too hard to be dark and fails is when or tried too hard to be creepy rather, was the scene in the middle transition of the game when you beat the first 3 dungeons and you're with the Lanayru spirit, and you have this cutscene with Link, and all this weird shit starts happening as the spirit explains what's going on, and it's just weird. It's not creepy. It's just like, it didn't work. Whatever they were trying to do, it didn't work, and I don't know if it was a cultural thing or what, but it just didn't feel like I think they meant it to feel. But other than that, the whole game, I mean, when you actually go to the Twilight Realm in that dungeon, really felt nice. I mean, it felt the way it should. It felt weird and strange and not dark, but different. I'm sorry, it felt different, and it really worked. And I think people are too harsh on the game for not being dark, or not being as dark as Majora's Mask, because it is a really good game, and the story and the theme is really nice. And that's really why it's my favorite game. But I really like it. And one more thing about it. What was I gonna say? The amount of dungeons. I think it's 7. Hold on, let me count. 1, 2, 3. I'm counting in my head. Hold on. 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep, 7 main dungeons, and then the end dungeon, which is about, again, the same as the Ganon's Tower in Ocarina of Time, about a half-seas dungeon. It's about 7.5 dungeons. Which is really, really a good amount. I think Ocarina of Time had the most. Let's count again, shall we? 1, 2, 3. Sorry, my dogs are barking. I can't do anything about that, but there's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 dungeons in Ocarina of Time. And then the end dungeon. So 8.5 for Ocarina of Time, 7.5 for Twilight Princess, and then 4 for Wind Waker and Majora's Mask. So Um, yeah, Twilight Princess is a great game. It's a really great game. And I'll talk about Link to the Past for a short amount of time because I had never played Link to the Past until I did the Let's Play of it, which was one of the first Let's Plays that I did. And I enjoy Link to the Past, but I feel like, and I don't want to be insulting when I say this, but this is one of the things I'm going to talk about when that dog won't shut up. This is one of the things that I'm going to talk about when I do my Metroid video, is that I feel like if you say Link to the Past is better than Ocarina of Time, I feel like a little bit of there's too much nostalgia and there's too much nostalgia because Ocarina of Time is basically Link to the Past in 3D with it's a longer game. It has more in it. The dungeons are crazy in the way they're themed, and it's just a beautiful game. And I feel like I'm not saying anything bad about Link to the Past. I think it's just Link to the Past didn't have the technology to be on the same level as Ocarina of Time. And again, there's none to the fault of Link to the Past. It's a great game for its time. It's one of the best. It is the best game of its time, actually, I want to say. But Ocarina of Time just improved on everything. Really, it did. And again, I think that might be a little opinionative for me to say that. I mean, it is all in the end, it's opinions, but yeah, I mean, that's my opinion. Is I think Ocarina of Time is much, much better than Link to the Past, but Link to the Past is still really, really good. Nothing wrong with it, really. I mean, I enjoyed it when I played it. I thought it was a very fun game, but again, it's a little short. But again, it's only because of the technology at the time, and it had to be short. And it's not the fault of it. But yeah, that pretty much does it for all the Zelda games that I wanted to talk about. I mean, I haven't played any of the handhelds. I haven't played Zelda 1 or Zelda 2, Adventure Link. I haven't played Oracle Seas. I haven't played Four Swords. I think I owned Four Swords, but I never played. No. I owned Four Swords Adventures, but I never played it because either I couldn't figure out how, or you had to have 4 people, or 2 players. I don't know what happened with that game. It's a really weird spot when I had it. I just didn't know how to play it. I mean, that's I don't know. But yeah, there you go. There's more Zelda talk. I wanted to get all my Zelda out so I could talk about different things. And I think I succeeded in that. Yeah, I think I succeeded in that. But I guess to conclude, I'm really interested to see where the Zelda series goes from here. Because it can either keep going downhill, or Nintendo is going to have to grab it by the balls and drag it back up to where it should be. Because they're the only ones that can really change it. No, they don't. They don't take in community feedback. I know they don't. They're very proud of their Zelda series, and they want to keep it their own. And there's no problem with that, but they have to realize their mistakes, and they have to move on in the right direction, or the Zelda series will unfortunately die, and that's going to be a sad day. It's going to be a very sad day. But we'll see. It's going to be probably another 2 years before we even hear anything about the next Zelda game. Well, maybe another year. It's going to be on the Wii U, and the Wii U's coming out in a couple months. Or even like a month even. So who knows, maybe it'll be a rather early Wii U release. It's interesting to think about, but Skyward Sword came out last year, so if that's anything to go by, then we got another like 4 years before the game comes out. And so we'll see. Again, these videos are meant to be discussions. Post in the comments if you disagree, if you want to talk about Zelda or anything in the video. I will respond. And also give me, if you want me to talk about anything, I mean, this is really more just things that I want to ramble on whenever I feel like it, because they're really easy to record and I don't have to write a script or do anything like that. But I have some more videos planned to do. But these videos are just meant to be discussions, so discuss in the comments. Discuss with each other even if you want. Pretend it's a forum. I don't know. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and I will see you in the next one.